So at some point I'd like to polish the plastic fuel tank on this bike. So I've been trying to develop some plastic polishing techniques using this drill and a buffing wheel. So it was kind of slow going at first. It was a bit of a challenge to try and figure something out. But this is where I'm at right now. So I had the video camera rolling when I polished this piece right here. And I'll post that in a future vid. But there's no polish on there, and there's no clear coat or heat gun used. It's just polishing. So that's actually a scrap fender. I'm going to chuck that, but it's perfect for doing some practice, you know. Well, working on the tie rod mount here on the spindle. So this is where I'm at right now. So these pieces here, I actually made those out of paper first. So this is a template that I used, and you can see it's got the same shape. So once I had the shape figured out, then I just traced that out on the steel that I wanted to use, and then cut it out, shaped it, and then fit it. Same thing on the bottom. And you can see it's got some angle in it. That angle matches the mounts for the ball joints also. And that all has to do with how much these joints articulate, getting the maximum use out of them. So then I made these also. I marked those out of paper and I trimmed those out. And I'll put those in there now, and I'll show you how it looks when I got that tie rod mount kind of boxed in. So there you can see how it's assembled. I got that little end cap here, and then I put the one on the side, and then on the inside I've got one there. So it's a really nice box for that tie rod, and it should have a lot of strength. So, and then the tie rod itself, I mean, it's like serious overkill for this project. I mean, it's pretty big and beefy. But what I'm doing is I'm using its size so that I can reduce it down with those high misalignment spacers. So I'm using the size so that I can gain articulation. So the other end, that's more of a reasonable size. There you can see a smaller one there. And I made a mount now for the rack and pinion there. And you can see how that tie rod is parallel with the A-arms. That's part of the strategy for reducing the bump steer. So a while back I was showing you the throttle on this bike, how it was sticking. So it turned out it was like old dried grease and like some glue and stuff between the throttle tube and the handlebar itself. So a fairly easy fix, and I really want to ride this thing a bit before I take it all apart and restore it. That tranny has got me curious. I'm pretty sure it's good, but I want to know for sure. And then, so I was looking at this tire, and we got a ton of snow out there, and I got to buy a tire for this bike eventually anyway. So I ordered a brand new one today. Okay, so I thought you guys might want to see this. I'm working on locating the tie rod here on the right side in the correct position so that I can start building a bracket around it. So this is the same procedure that I used on the left side. So I started off by using a piece of tubing, and you see I've got it fastened to the spindle here with a spot weld, while the other end of the tubing is fastened to the other spindle with a clamp there. So when I do that, it forces both of the spindles in a straight ahead position, and then I'm using this piece of angle iron here to help me line up the tie rod with the ball joints. So you can see it's just a piece of angle iron, and the tie rod here, it's just lightly up against the piece of angle. Okay, so now I'm going to show you some stuff that they'll probably never teach you in school. I'm going to zoom in here on the top of the angle iron, and by looking at it I can see that I'm nicely lined up with the flat part that points towards me. So now I'm going to go down a little bit and look at the top ball joint. You see how it also lines up with that part of the angle, and then I go down a bit, there's the tie rod just lightly touching, and then down there there's the other ball joint, and it's also lining up with that piece of angle. So I've got the tie rod assembly nicely parallel with the A-arms, and I already got the depth set like this way, and then what I needed to do is set the distance this way. And so for that I just measured back and I made a mark, you know, on the piece of angle, and so I established that. So from here, what I did is I fastened this whole tie rod assembly. I've actually got a spot weld right back here so that the tie rod is fastened to this piece of tubing, and then I got that clamped down, and there's another clamp there. So the whole tie rod assembly right now is secured in right in that location. So what I can do now is pull all this angle iron stuff out of here, and then I'm ready to start building that bracket.